So this is my how to beat mass heroes without side decking. So I try to find cards that typically are main decked, especially if they automatically belong to an archetype you already have it. For example, Inferno's got Nehemoth, and that already has the ability that by tributing a monster you can negate a spell or a trap. So that's good for countering your opponent's mass change or second mass change. And then let's say your opponent already has Dark Law on the field, because that's the typical monster you're going to have to play around. All the other monsters, all the other mass heroes, you can deal with them individually. You can deal with them the way you normally deal with any other monster in the game. You don't have to figure out ways to play around them. You could just play against them, the way you normally would. But Dark Law, it's a little tougher because he has two effects you gotta deal with if you plan to take him down. He only has 2400 attacks, so it's a decent attack, not the best attack. So of course, if you can summon something that's stronger than 24, you can run him over relatively easy. But if you don't, you gotta find some alternate ways to do it, especially if a lot of your monsters are weak, like their attacks are less than 2000, but you do have an extra deck, you do exceed summon, so you would have access to monsters whose attacks can exceed his attack. Right. So let's continue with possible main deck options, right? So BLS, most decks that have light and dark run this. I've seen Burning Abyss decks that run this because Dante is light, so this would be an out. So if you have some light and darks in the graveyard, this would be a good option. If you're playing Light Swarms, for example, you might have some light and darks, especially if you went first and milled a couple cards, you might already have the light and darks now in the grave necessary to use BLS. So it's just a matter of Dark Law hits the field, drop BLS, take down Dark Law. You could obviously take them down by attacking, or you could just use your effect and banish them, so that way you don't have to worry about him ever again. If you play Necros, you will have access to Trishula, Brionic, and Gunir. Since when you ritual summon, the monsters that you tribute don't have to go to graveyard. You just gotta tribute them to play the ritual card, and you can special summon them. So if you're able to special summon, unless somebody has Vanity Emptiness in their hero deck, right, you'd be able to special summon. You can summon any one of these three, and I applied their effects, which will help you get rid of Dark Law, help you get rid of any of the mass heroes. But specifically, we want to focus on Dark Law more than the other ones because he's the one that has that interesting condition that any card that is sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So it's basically a macrocosmos type of deal, so you gotta play around it. So you have to think before you act, because if you do something that requires you to send a card to the graveyard specifically, that won't apply, and since the card never went to the graveyard, you won't get an effect. So you gotta be careful of what you use. Gunir has an effect where you discard a card in order discard a Necros monster. Discard a Necros card and target one card on the field and destroy it. So that's a cost. You discard a Necros card, and you can pop one card on the field. Brionic has an effect that you can discard one. You can target up to 2 monsters on the field that were special summoned from the extra deck. Shuffle them back into the deck. This doesn't destroy it, just shuffles it back into the deck. So since it's up to 2, you could just do 1 and get rid of your opponent's Dark Law or any of the mass heroes. Trishula, you gotta be able to apply all 3 parts of his effect in order to do his effect. But if you can't, he's still 2700. He's still strong enough to run over Dark Law if you can't apply his effects. So either way, you're in a win-win scenario with him. With Bionic, you definitely need to get his effect. And Gunnier's 25. She can beat him without an effect. But hey, why not use the effect and get a direct attack, right? There is another play you could do with Necross, is if you have any of the Necross that have, you know, over 1,000 attack, specifically the 1500 and 1600 one, and use the decisive arm. I might as well put those cards up. Alright, so you see it's Archmage, he's the 1500, and Dance Princess, she's the 1600. If you could get either one of them on the field and then use the Necross armor of decisive armor, he would give you 1,000 boost just by discarding him. So you discard him, you get the effect to boost him up, boost him to 25 or her to 2600. That's enough to run over Dark Law. What else you could run over? You could run over technically not Koga, because Koga has that effect. But you can take down Vapor, you could take down Goka. Most of these you can take down if you switch them to defense. Dark Law has 1800 defense, so switch them to defense and running him over with something stronger than that. It's another option, of course. Most of these have defenses that are pretty low. So you get the idea. Obviously you can use, you know, chainable traps and battle traps to deal with your opponent's mass heroes. Dark Law, for example. You can use Deep Prism, Mirror Force, stuff like that. Compulse. Wing Blast, of course, is an option. Karma Cut's another one. At least it'll banish him permanently. And if there's another copy of him in the graveyard, you get rid of that one as well. That way your opponent can't Miracle Fusion or anything like that if they run Miracle Fusion in their mass hero deck. Regeki Break, just because it's good, it's generic, it's multi-purpose, you can target anything, not just your opponent's monsters. Break to Skill, useful if you wait long enough, because if it's already in the grave, you could banish it during your turn, negate Dark Law's effect and go off. You can negate any of the other Mass Heroes effects and go off. If you had it set on the field for a whole turn, when it's your turn, you can of course activate it and negate the Mass Heroes effect and take them down. MST, a well-placed MST as it were, could help you stop the mass change combo, because you'll set it with the rest of your back row. In your turn, your opponent does whatever he does to get mass change, and he might set the mass change. The only thing is that if they set it with other cards, it might be tough to determine which one is mass change, and you definitely gotta MST it before, you know, it's your turn, because if not, it's pointless. You won't, you know, MST doesn't negate, so it'd be pointless to play MST on your turn when, you know, when they play their mass change. It won't stop the mass change doing its effect. You want to pop it after it was set, so you know, if you pay attention close enough, maybe your opponent doesn't pay attention. Maybe as soon as he adds the spell card, he sets and then sets other cards, so now you know which one it is. Obviously it was the first one he set. Then you could pop it, and that's how you can deal with mass change. And if they can't mass change, they can't drop these big mass heroes, right? So something simple. Most people main deck MSTs, or at least the item, but mainly you main deck stuff like that. If Dark Law is already on the field, Dark Hole, Regeki, Dark Hole, simple stuff. Anything they'll just wipe them out real quick, you know, without that much effort. Same goes for any of the other heroes. You can just wipe them out with a nice little Dark Hole or Regeki. If I'm right, one can't. Which one was it? I think it was the Wind one, right? That was the one that had the good effect. Yeah, can I be this? No, he just can't be destroyed by. Well, this guy destroys him. It can't be destroyed by battle. This is the one that can't be destroyed by battle. We get the idea. Pretty much, you could just Dark Hole Regeki. Book of Moon's good to put the monsters face down. Most players main deck this as a tech choice or a personal preference, whatever they like it, because it's versatile. So definitely good in these scenarios. It's a quick play, so it's chainable. So also it's useful because mass change has to send a face-up hero monster to the graveyard to get the effect. So that's two things you gotta remember. The monster has to be face up for the spell card to apply. Second thing is it has to actually send it to the graveyard. So if there's something on the field that's preventing it, that prevents things from going to the graveyard, like a Dark Law or a Macrocosmos, Dimensional Fusion, stuff like that, Banisher Radiance, then of course they can't mass change because they can't send the hero to the grave. So obviously a way to deal with hero deck, a mass hero deck, is your own Dark Law. So that's why it's there in the extra deck list. Is like even your own Dark Law can shut down your opponent's plays, the ability to summon their mass hero, because they can't send none of their heroes to the grave for their mass change. So you essentially lock them out of being able to play their deck. Obviously good for the mirror matches and annoying, right? But since the one has to be face up that you send to the graveyard, if you Book of Moon it, it won't be face up and it won't apply. Same goes for if your lands, mainly is because the spell card won't have an effect on the hero monster. So if you lance the hero, mass change, even second mass change, would not be able to send the hero to the graveyard. And since it can't send it to do its effect, it won't summon a hero. Most players play Lance main deck anyway, so this will be an automatic answer to the mass change play. And it's a quick play, so it's chainable, obviously. So you can chain to the activation mass change. But if they change a second mass change, what can you do, right? Tons of things. That's what this video is about, right? Tons of things. They could chain another one, then you just play something else. Creature Drop is good to take advantage of the fact that your opponent summoned a mass hero, especially in a mirror match. Take their hero and now they gotta deal with it. So that way you don't have to deal with it anymore. Just take it and let them deal with it. Right? Enemy controller. Like I said, most of these mass heroes' defense are lower, much lower than their attacks. So switch into defense so you can eat. So it makes it easier for you to run them over. Comes in handy. Switch into defense is useful if you want to use something like, if you play Light Swarms, and you know Dark Law definitely likes to hurt Light Swarms. You can play enemy controller, Book of Moon, anything that will switch, Dark Law, for example, to defense mode, and then summon Light Sworn Aaron, attack with Light Sworn Aaron. Light Sworn's air effect will kick in, throwing Dark Law back into the extra deck. Or any of the heroes. Throw them back into the deck, and then there you go. That could be your out right there. And Snatch Steal, not that different from Creature Swap. Take their mass hero and use it against them. Already mentioned Lance. Already mentioned Dark Law. You get your Dark Law out there, make it hard for your opponent to do anything, so then they gotta deal with a Dark Law. Most decks can make Dark Law, obviously by using second mass change. Wind up Zen mains. The thing about Dark Law is that cards that are sent to the graveyard are banished instead, which means you still can pay costs. You still can detach materials from X, Y, Z's to activate their effects. Since that's the case, of course the materials will still get banished, but since that's the case, you can obviously use Zen Main's effect, summon them, attack, detach, and then during interface, pop your opponent's Dark Law or any of his mass heroes. Acid Golem. These are two typical options that a Burning Abyss deck will be able to have, since Dark Law can hurt a Burning Abyss deck with its effects. So obviously you gotta have some type out. These are like two typical outs that you can go for: a Zen main or an Acid Golem play. Then we got Dark Rebellion XYZ, generic, any deck that can make rank 4s can play this. It's already 25, so it already can run over Dark Law, but against any of the other mass heroes who have higher attacks, you can use this effect to cut their attacks in half, gain it, and then run them over, so it makes it easier to run them over. So this is generic, you're out to anything that's big and strong, or anything problematic. Obviously, Exciton Knight, he has more cards than you, then you can use it. But typically, since it's a mass hero deck, they might have less cards than you. So this is an option, but not your common out to mass heroes. Then we got number 101, detach the 2 materials, steal your opponent's hero, and turn it into a material. So that's one out. Cowboy, a lot of people play this, and it does have a good first effect that could be used to run over Dark Law, for example, because it'll make Dark Law weaker by 500 attack, and then he'll give himself 1,000 attack, make himself 25, which is more than enough to run over Dark Law. And then, just the irony that he also has 2,400 defense, so you can actually guard against Dark Law, and you can just slowly burn your opponent. Stroke. This is not exactly an immediate out, because the only real usefulness of Mind Stroke is the fact that you could put, basically it's a monster version of Book of Moon. You could put opponent's Dark Law face down or any of the mass heroes face down, and then hopefully you have a monster who has a stronger attack to run it over, because 1800 is not enough to take down Dark Law. So Stroke won't automatically by itself take anything down, but it could potentially take something down in a combination. Then you got Tiger King. Tiger King can negate, by detaching a material, negate the effect of any of the mass heroes, including Dark Law. And if you have Tenki and Tensu on the field, for example, you become a 2400. That's enough to bunk heads, but you typically just want to run them over. But this is an option to negate his effects, so that way you can use cards like you want to add more cards to your hand, or you want to send cards to the graveyard, you can use that. Sky Blaster. Now this is strong enough. Typically you will have this in your extra deck over Stroke, because this is strong enough. You can detach a material, put Dark Law face down, run it over, because it has 2000 attack. Dark Law has 1800 defense. But you can just detach all the both materials on Sky Blaster and just send Dark Law or any of the mass heroes back into the deck, and then attack directly, which is the better option. Excalibur for any warrior based deck that makes rank 4s. Excalibur is a decent option, especially if this is like your only option, because he could become 4,000, more than enough to run over any of the heroes, including Dark Law. To prevent any of these heroes, since these heroes are level 5 and higher, if you're running Evil Swarms, you could just go into Ophion. Relatively easy, and that'll make it hard for them to summon any of the mass heroes. But Evil Swarm Ophion is also 2550, more than enough attack strength to run over a Dark Law. Felgrand, strong enough to run over Dark Law, but also it has a usefulness that it has basically a built-in Phoenix Chain Veiler type of effect, where if your opponent tries to mass change one of his heroes, you can detach a material from this card, target their hero, and now their hero is unaffected by spell cards, so the mass change will not work to bring out any of the mass heroes. Toward beast, any deck they can synchro into this. You can send the top 2 cards of your deck to a graveyard to negate a spell card, like mass change 2. If you run samurais, you can make legendary 6 samurai Shien. He can once per turn stop a spell or trap. Obviously use this to stop any of the mass change cards once per turn. And that's the end of the deck. That's the end of the video.